Play music. You can bear it around as you will. Planning on sending to. Well, no, yeah, I was just wondering if you were going to do Kimono Mimiya as well. You have the link to it. I just created the thing. some point, and I will have to delay or stop what I'm doing. Just let me know. Okay. Alrighty, and then make sure I actually put it over for once, and I believe we should be good to go then.
You messed up once, and doing it right becomes once.
Exactly. Okay, so this is the next episode, and this is the series finale. Not series, bah. I already screwed up everything.
Suddenly,
The season finale of Sliders, season 1. The episode is called The Lottery. I am Silent, or Ukakisa, and I'm a political philosopher and ethicist.
yes, I am Koki. I interrupt people by speaking too soon, and neither of those things have any qualifications, except that I kind of like alternate history.
And knows more about it than basically anybody I know. And by it, I mean history in general.
Well, today we are discussing an episode.
Yes. The episode is titled I Am Very Bad at What I Am Doing. I don't think that's actually the title, but
yeah.
Anyway, that's what I was doing. The episode is The Lottery. So they land on a world, and they see that like everything's really affordable, and are like, "Oh wow, everything's cheap. What is this? 1950s world or something like that?" And as they go around, they keep seeing more and more things that are really good and nice, or that they think are really good and nice, such as like there's no overpopulation in this world. The world only has 500 million people. I know I looked it up, but I've already forgotten when the Earth last had 500 million people, but I think it was like middle 1800s. Everything is really affordable. Like you can buy Apple for 35 cents or something like that. Everybody seems content and happy and just enjoys life. The professor suddenly loses his wallet at the beginning, and some skater kid who would be stereotyped in like the 90s movies as at least I would imagine him being stereotyped in a movie as like a skater kid, but who actually has a heart of gold type thing. Also has that in here. The professor's like, I lost my wallet, and the kid's like, I think you dropped that, and gives it back. And the professor's like, oh, this is a trustworthy world.
I haven't thought about like how the guy picking up the wallet was coded. Like that's something interesting to pick up on.
So they say this, so Wade is basically the narrative device in the episode. She's keeping a journal of their adventures. I can't remember the reason given at the moment, but it says there's no crime, no racial strife, no pollution. I might disagree with no pollution. There's just would be very little pollution, although that's semantic quibbling, I guess. There's no poverty. They explicitly mention, what if I want to give money to the poor? And the host of the lottery, which I'll be getting to it in a little bit, says that there are no more poor people. The last poor person won the lottery herself 6 months ago. Um, and uh, so obviously, I think it was kind of obvious, but they're like, they kill anybody who wins the lottery. This was based on the like what 1920s, 30s, maybe earlier short story, The Lottery, which they do the exact same thing. I'm not sure how many people this would have been a spoiler for, but um, I feel like they kind of gave it away at the very beginning when they play the lottery and Rembrandt takes out $5,000. Wade takes out, I don't remember, $10,000.
No, Wade took out less than Rembrandt, I think. I think she took out 8,000.
Hmm. I couldn't remember, but
Yeah, I remember thinking, because I mean, that's how it works, right? It's not the person who buys the most lotto tickets that wins. No, it's oftentimes someone who buys a lot of lotto tickets.
yeah. I'm reminded of there was apparently a guy, I think it was from like Ireland, who searches around for basically rigged lotteries. That is to say, they're not actually rigged, but like he does that type of thing. Who was it from France who won the lottery by buying all the tickets? You're the historian. You know this.
I've never heard of this.
Oh. Well, I am going to pause my game to look it up. French guy who won lottery by buying all the tickets. Historical. Voltaire.
Voltaire did that? Oh, yeah, I know who Voltaire is. I didn't know that that's the thing he did.
He basically figured out that the price for buying every single ticket in the lottery was cheaper than the prize of the lottery itself. So he bought all of the tickets and won the lottery. I think he did it with the help of like three other guys. But there's a guy I think it was from Ireland, it might be a company, but he basically hires a number of people to scour the US for lotteries like this and has them go to gas stations or other places that have lotto draws and basically just hog all of the lottery tickets, buy hundreds of thousands of tickets.
This is one of those situations of why don't the board just buy more money? You know, considering the startup capital you need for that, it's like, bruh, what are you doing?
Rigging the lottery. But yeah, assuming I got it correct, I believe that's the case and the person and whatnot. But so this lottery gives out money whenever you want it. You can take out as much or as little money as your heart desires at the moment. You Arturo immediately starts questioning this, as there's no such thing as something for nothing. Although it is amusing because he does still participate in it, even though he's kind of the most jaded. He only takes out a minuscule amount. He takes out $5, but it does still enter him into the lottery by virtue of that's how the lottery works. So I found that as odd. Cue Ball apparently agrees with this sentiment, but it just seems in part to agree by way of the fact, or by reason of the fact that he is afraid that Wade will actually stay in this world. Um, it seems kind of, or a little bit of it, thinking on it, I kind of am now thinking that it might be a post hoc justification of him agreeing with the professor. Not that he doesn't generally, but he just doesn't want Wade to stay in the world. He wants her to continue sliding with them. Um,
They're finally asking the question that we ask every episode.
yep. Um, um, subtitles. I found this amusing. I think I mentioned it to Koki. I don't actually recall though. Anytime the lottery comes up in the episode, in where we were watching it, the subtitles always capitalize the word lottery. Because it's a name, and there's the emphasis put on it, obviously as such. It wasn't a big thing, and it wasn't, important, but it was a thing that they did, and I thought was entertaining. Um, so when you win the lottery, you get a white card. You can show this off to any merchant that you want, and they'll give you whatever you feel like, or whatever you request, and you can't be turned away. This leads to my question of obviously if you have any consumables, yes, you'll get it and be able to keep it forever, but if you don't have one, like you get a new car, is the can they effectively, I don't know the right words, repossess the car when you die?
That I think it really is part of that whole next of kin thing that they signed.
Could you expand upon that?
Well, like that's a whole in the ball thing that they were at. They had to sign off their assets to the next of kin. This is still before it's explicit that they're gonna die, but afterwards it's kind of obvious that whatever you get, whatever you have, including the millions of dollars, is going to go to whoever you signed off on, right? Whoever your next of kin is.
Mm-hmm. Go on.
It would be weird to have this whole, oh hey, you can win all this money you can't spend, and then we're gonna take it all back. Kind of the point is you get to decide what happens to that money.
True. You can win so it's $5 million when you win, and that $5 million you can give away. I obviously would agree that the $5 million isn't, I don't want to say repossessed, but taken back by the government. But the stuff that you procure during the period, obviously this in universe, if they read the contract, I'm not certain anybody actually did, but probably is within the contract. And they would that would take care of it, but we didn't get to see that, which is why my inquiry. Obviously, anything you have prior to winning the lottery could go to would definitely go to your next of kin, and that would indicate what the will is for. But my question is anything that you get afterwards, not counting the $5 million. like something that's highly specifically fitted for you, such as the fact that Wade bought several dresses.
Yeah, I guess we'd have to see the contract. I'm not saying it's outside of the realm of possibility.
Yeah.
It just it would be weird because it's for. I guess it would be favoring certain kinds of businesses over others. Of like, oh yeah, you can get consumables, but also you can get this other class of items, but not really, right? So then there's the question of why even use the card instead of spending the $5 million? That might be the distinction. If you spend your own money on it, then it's yours. But if you use the card, then it's not. Maybe there are a lot of ways they could have done this, but ultimately it's up for guessing. But
Yeah. We only know the way that they did do it, or what they showed, I guess, anyway. Uh, so I'm not sure I actually had this in the correct order. I put it more in topical ones, uh, which I don't think I like and will not do anymore. It's revealed that the professor doesn't like dogs, and Wade had a cat at home. There was and that Wade was a romantic lit major in university and wrote a paper on Yeats, who I will have to admit I have never read. I'm not too big into famous literatures.
I don't remember this at all.
Um, yeah, it's when they were when she was dancing with what's his face, the pretty boy, at the gala, and then he recites poetry to her. And then she guesses, "Oh, that's Yeats. I wrote a paper on him." Uh, so the way they give away that the lottery kills people at the very beginning, they finish getting their lotto money, and people in the background zooms in and it's like, "Gotta admire those high rollers, where they rest in peace." Um, Granted, I guess, as Koki said, there are possibly other ways that such a thing could play out. I'm not fully certain. I might have just watched the episode too much. Could Koki give potentials?
I mean, even in our world, there's a general belief, with at least some anecdotal evidence, so I've heard that, like, actual data is kind of scant, that winning the lottery is likely to ruin your life or get you killed. It could also mean that, in this world you're likely to die after winning the lottery for reasons other than, this is literally, like, a death lottery. But there's also just, you may never see them again. They're doing something that's like, wow, the general vibe of live fast, die young. There are a few different ways you could read it.
Mm-hmm.
And even like, you get the conclusion that, yes, winning the lottery is associated with death, but you don't know why or how.
Mm-hmm. I guess that makes sense, especially if we factor into it that there are parallel worlds and people could have obviously different ways of conceiving things. I think it's safe to say in our world, people think winning the lottery is an easy trip to an easy life. Which obviously in this world wouldn't be, but assuming that it could just be a statement difference more than, but yes, I see. So they ask an old couple where to get a taxi, and the couple just points over and says, "Just use the public cars. They're I can't remember the exact phrasing, but they basically say that the public cars are free for use whenever you feel like having them. Keys are already inside. You just need to pick it up and go.
Yeah, it's free, so that makes it a little different from the scooters you'll see around some cities, but that's what I thought of, the scooters that we see around some cities, that you can just pick it up and start it.
Yeah, I mean, I noted it in person, but we do have some of those here. I am not saying where we live, but we do have some here. Oops, that's not what I wanted. So then they mentioned the Thomas Malthus Center for Sexual Ethics and Education. I think I have it in a different page, but regardless. I haven't actually read him. I said I was going to in preparation for this episode, and then went on to not, because I am bad at my job.
This is your job.
All but.
But, I guess the long and short is, Malthus
There we go.
believed that. Oh, what was that?
Oh, I got distracted. I was trying to get this tiny little section of the butterfly, and I couldn't, so I had to scroll in and concentrate, and unfortunately I can't speak while I'm thinking.
Okay. Well.
Stupid as it sounds, but yes, that's the case. Go on.
Malthus was famous for his comments on population growth, and generally concluded that the rate in which we get the resources to sustain a population do not increase at the same speed as which the population multiplies. And basically, some people have to go without, some people will go without, and it's important that we make sure some people go without, or else we're all going to be short on resources and we're all going to suffer. And so the idea is if population growth goes unchecked, then it becomes a kind of a survival of the fittest situation. This is actually part of the inspiration for natural selection. It wasn't inspired by evolution, but it actually was an inspiration for evolution. He wrote against, poverty laws to help the poor, and he was also in favor
To
of...
clarification. He wrote against poverty laws that help the poor, and not he wrote against poverty laws to help the poor.
Yeah, he very much was like, I don't want to help the poor. We should not help the poor.
Yeah.
The idea is helping the poor will just make things worse for everyone, whereas letting the poor starve at least allows some people to be okay.
I find it mildly ironic that you basically have today's entire episode to yourself because I didn't do the philosophy research.
Okay. But he was also in favor of taxing like the import and export of grain. So kind of going into the mercantilist economic aspect. I mean that was already kind of on the way out in favor of what we would call capitalism, but he came up with a new rationale.
So he seems really endorsed in this world. The people who are opposed to him are the called the right to lifers, or right to.
They're not necessarily opposed to him, though they're pretty inconsistent on what their thoughts are on the population. They're opposed to the lottery as a means of obtaining zero population, and possibly opposed to zero population, but those are two different discussions.
Yeah, and we might get into those too. So the right to lifers choosing the leader of the local group of it anyway appears to be a priest by virtue of the fact that he's wearing all black, but with the traditional. I want to call it the father collar, or I don't remember what the actual term for it is. But the little white thing around the neck under the lapel. Is it called a lapel? I think it's called a lapel.
That looks like your chest.
Oh. But under the neck,
Yeah,
whatever. Yeah, yeah, yeah. He says that they don't want when you first hear him and he's talking to Cue Ball, he says they don't want zero population growth, which suggests to me they want more population growth. I guess it could be we still want to reduce the population, but it's not zero. And then following that, later in the episode, he announces over a loudspeaker, zero population growth must be achieved through birth control only. Which feels at least kind of inconsistent. Granted, if you want negative population growth still, then I guess it's not inherently inconsistent. But the fact that you seem to call for one and then say you don't, but
yeah, I mean, there's clearly some inconsistent messaging there, and they don't really have, like, I'm guessing that they were done in different order than how we were thinking about it, but obviously the thing is that Catholics are notoriously against birth control, at least in certain circumstances. I think pretty much whenever. Anything other than like going by the ovulation cycle, just going by that. I think the Catholic Church generally opposes birth control. In this case, the idea is, well, in this other world, they're actually for birth control, such that even if is there against killing people in the slaughter.
yeah. Probably as a practical issue. Granted, I also could understand Catholics not caring about the practical issues and just heavily focusing on the morality of the situation, but
They just want to evoke imagery of our world.
Yeah.
In terms of what the religious landscape looks like in this alternate timeline.
yeah,
Well, I guess we'll get into that later, but short answer, I don't think we can say.
yeah, same.
We're really trying to evoke certain imagery.
Yeah, but so Cue Ball finds out about the lottery and that it's killing people because this priest gives him a pamphlet, and the pamphlet is done by Nobel Prize winning philosophers and scientists. I interpreted this as in almost all of my watch throughs as Cue Ball is inserting the fact that he recognizes these names as philosophers and scientists in their home world and their Nobel Prize winners. Koki brought up that it could be that they are Koki voice echo sounds like you're standing at the far end of a long tunnel.
Wait, what?
I'm reading the chat. I kind of thought you were doing that, but
Oh,
I just decided to flip over to it. Hi, Leaf.
oh, okay. I thought you said that sounded like I was on the that was the far end of the long tunnel. But also, yes, hi.
So back to what I was saying. Koki had mentioned that it could be written in the pamphlets themselves, and so cue ball doesn't need to know anything about these individuals, which, yeah, I guess that makes sense. Could make sense. I'm not sure why some of these would be, I guess, that relevant. I guess it would.
I believe he is holding the pamphlet when specifically when he says this.
Yeah, he just bursts into the room basically and is like, "Hey, what you're doing is wrong." Uh, Obviously, significantly more subtly,
I think it's
but
worth noting he was suspicious of this world before he had any clear reason to be.
yeah, I think it's similar to my prior statement. He's suspicious, and not because he actually is suspicious, or starting out to be. I think he started to become suspicious of it because he was trying to find any negativity or issue with it because he wanted Wade to stay with them. Because this is shortly after their will they, won't they type thing, and they even kind of addressed that in this episode.
Actually, yeah, I thought that was kind of weird that it's like, oh, we said we were going to be like this, and like, wait, what? They agreed to this off screen? Their relationship confuses me to the point that it's frustrating.
Yeah.
But also, I think that what it's really trying to capture is that a lot of Americans in the 90s, and granted, my main point of reference is an episode of Captain Planet that I sort of touched on this, were suspicious of the idea of zero population growth. And they already knew that the global population was much lower at this point. And so, part of this might have been like freedom. But, yeah, another thing is he doesn't want to lose weight. But I think the real thing is that he's kind of the stand-in for the presumed American audience having this kind of reaction to we need to limit population growth, that a lot of them are like, government has gone too far, even before the government comes up in the conversation.
Mm. True. I think I had written that somewhere, but I don't recall where I wrote it, so I'll just get to it presently. Yeah, his general attitude seems to be, I do not trust the government, and that appears to be his, I don't know what word I want to use, political through line. Is that, would you agree with that, or think I'm saying nonsense?
I are those the two options? I'm just like, okay,
Well, no, I mean,
I'm making any assessments of Quinn's character here or his tendencies, but the point is that the way he reacted to me seems like a very common reaction to the idea of, hey, maybe the population shouldn't be so big, which at the time, in the 90s we're talking,
yeah.
was not that much of a right-wing talking point, it was a bit more of a left-wing talking point.
Yeah.
Which is weird to think about, but this was usually part of the environmentalist movement. And I feel like it goes back and forth in terms of which side of the political spectrum population control is, but
Yeah.
that, this is just generally what I think is happening, not necessarily a statement of, like, this is before the government even came up, but there's this sort of, like, knee-jerk reaction of, why are you suggesting I should do a thing or not do a thing? I brought up the government, but I think a better comparison is someone just saying they are vegetarian or vegan, right? That immediately just sort of triggers something in people, that it's sort of like, you're making an assessment on my life and my choices and my values. It's sort of that's the defensiveness I see from Flynn before he
Mm-hmm.
learns about the lottery.
Mm-hmm. I see.
But, uh, Quinn was like, hey, let's call the cops before. So clearly he does have. I mean, the messaging of the show and its relationship with the government is inconsistent, and probably because it has multiple writers that I'm not keeping track of.
Same.
But, that's where I'm coming from there.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah, so they protests happen in front of the municipal processing center. Um, the priest is saying birth, and the protest signs are saying birth control yes, lottery no. This is mildly amusing, I find, given the right to life attitude in our world. Being to some degree even opposed to that minuscule.
yeah, right to life seems like it's an allusion to the pro-life movement where they're anti-abortion, but in this case, and if you're anti-abortion, you tend to be, not necessarily, but you tend to be anti-birth control.
Yeah.
And so the idea is birth control is good. We love birth control. We don't like this other thing. It's kind of hinting at, oh, this society is so far gone. It's not even a discussion about birth control or no. It's a discussion about literally killing people.
Yeah.
Well,
um,
don't lawyer my words here. I'm speaking off the cuff.
yeah, me as well. Um, um, so they overturned the prison van. Cue Ball's trying to go like, my friend's in there. His only crime is wanting. What? Yeah, I said I put it in by topic, and I now realize that was a dumb thing to do when I was taking my notes.
I could step in. So Rembrandt fell in love with another lottery winner, and it's worth noting. Wade is a lottery winner. Rembrandt just came as a friend, and he fell in love with a lottery winner. And knowing when the slide was, well, first they wanted to make sure that Wade could get out of there and didn't have to kill herself. By the way, that's the lottery. I think we've already said it, but in case it's not explicit, after you win the lottery, you get all this money, and then you are made to kill yourself.
And if you don't, the government kills you for you.
Painfully.
You might be tortured.
Yeah, it's unclear. Like, it's clearly worse than just dying. And whether or not this comes in the form of, well, you said painfully. Yeah, never mind, torture, you're right. So, in any case, Rembrandt is thinking maybe I can talk to her and get her to not kill herself. And it's worth putting these lottery winners in the world, they 100% are down to die. Like, in the case of Rembrandt's love interest, I forget her name, she was talking about how, beautiful the last lottery winners were, and how this is something she wanted to be.
Julianne.
Julianne. And in the case of Wade's other love interest, because this is the thing that happens.
Ryan.
Even before it seemed like they were dating, Quinn and Wade were never exclusive. And even though sometimes they'll make jabs at each other, teasing about possible jealousy, their relationship is weird, but this seems healthy and fine if they agree upon it. I wish I heard them agree upon it, but regardless, he was like, "Oh, hey, I did so much in my life, and death is the next big adventure." So in this case, it's not even for the prestige. He wanted to die. This is why he participated in the lottery. But Rembrandt's thinking, okay, she's a reasonable person. I can convince her not to kill herself. And she calls the cops on him. And, well, no, first she thinks that she and Rembrandt, first she thought that Rembrandt was proposing that they die together, which she thought would have been beautiful and romantic. And this is just, a thing that she thought would be wonderful. When she realized that Rembrandt was trying to convince her not to kill herself, she called the police on him.
And her statement justification was that she wouldn't let him jeopardize her family's inheritance.
Oh, really? I
Yes.
just remember that weird, clearly delusional thing.
Well, yeah, that too, but there was both.
And to be fair, he was talking about coming from a parallel universe where, that they could travel together. So, that's not a wholly irrational response.
Yeah.
But okay, so there is also an economic aspect of that politeness. And so Rembrandt gets locked up, and he's going to be put through the process. It's sort of alluded to as being very painful, and you do die. It's clearly not as prestigious as winning the lottery. This is, even though when Rembrandt was locked up, there was the same spiel that people do when people talk about death generally, which was going on to the great beyond. Which we haven't really touched up on it. Well, it has the appearance of a secular society. It's clear that there's a certain kind of New Age language that pervades every aspect of this culture.
Yeah, there is a degree of this. So the topic of people dying and coming back comes up again in a later episode. Slide like an Egyptian. And the exact same thing occurs. This seems to be a similarity across the series when they are engaging in topics of or cultures that are really like death focused. That these things occurred, and they've just done aggressively more studies of it, and as shown in Slide Like an Egyptian, and I believe that can be extrapolated back into this episode as well. It's not necessarily so much a religious element as much as it is they actually just know because they have scientifically studied death to a much more extreme degree than we did.
I see. They also have other language like Milky Way is the word that they use for people who win the lottery.
Yes.
So
it's not fully, but it's not fully devoid of religious connotations. Yeah.
Yeah, and at the very least, there's a certain, even if it is rooted in knowledge, which we don't know what these people know about the afterlife, it definitely is a very cultural thing.
Yeah.
And people who are being punished by torture death are reassured that this is for the good of society.
Yeah.
So then they overturned the prison truck. You can resume where you were.
Overturn the prison truck. He cue balls Cully now. My friend's in there. His only crime is wanting to live, which isn't his only crime.
Not true.
Yeah. His crime is interfering with the lottery, trying to not let the government kill somebody, which while I guess we could call it admirable, is definitely still a crime, regardless of your thoughts on the issue at hand.
And this is what makes me think that there was a rewrite partway through, because this would have made perfect sense if it was Wade that got caught and locked up for trying to subvert the lottery thing, because Wade's life was at risk.
Yeah.
Wade won the lottery and she wants to live.
And that combined with the fact that the priest suddenly holds a wildly different, contradictory position, yeah, does kind of suggest inconsistent writers, or there being inconsistent writers. I guess it also suggests writers are being inconsistent, but that can happen either way.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess it's not totally out there that activists can be inconsistent in their rhetoric,
Yeah.
right? Like,
What's life without a
sometimes
little
you might
hypocrisy?
say, huh? What was that?
Oh, I said, what's life without a little hypocrisy or
Yeah, like,
contradiction?
sometimes you will literally just say fuck the troops, and then in the next breath it's like, no, I love the troops, that's why I want them to come home and not be sent on wars. And then you'll say, but they're fucking monsters for being in the military. You know, like, this is a thing that happens. People will, like, shift their rhetoric according to their audience. It's a little jarring because in this case the audience is us both times, and I don't think they put enough thought into how this priest character is portrayed. Or maybe this was intended, but I feel like it wasn't.
Yeah, it's also not just people altering their statement based on their audience. It's also altering their statements based on their own values at any given second. It'll never be as extreme as the example you posed, but because if it gets to that extreme, then you get into then you have to engage in some major levels of cognitive dissonance in order to justify holding both positions at once, which is very rare.
Yeah, and to be honest, the fact that they call themselves the Right to Life movement makes me think that they really aren't about yes, birth control, lottery, no. I think that this is very much sort of an anti-abortion, anti-birth control movement. And simple fact of the matter is, and granted, we don't know about lottery winners in this world besides the two that we've seen. But it seems as though they want to die. It's not about their right to life being infringed upon. It's on their right to die being blocked, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, you can say that the lady, especially if there's a financial aspect to it, though she clearly wasn't poor, and that wasn't her primary motivation. But in the case of the Wade's love interest, I forget his name,
Ryan.
he wanted to die. Ryan wanted to die. He was participating in that to die, right? This isn't about his life to life, his right to life.
Yeah, the only reason he didn't continue wanting to die is because he's like, oh boy, infinite universes to explore.
Yeah, this society, maybe people feel pressure to playing the lottery, and the winners we get aren't really reflective of the society, and so, like, there's, like, this is the only way I can get ahead in life. But we're given every reason to believe this is an idyllic society, and the infinite ATM is just something, you have the option of playing the lottery. You know, we don't really hear people complaining about joblessness or anything like that, so.
Yeah.
This isn't me necessarily saying it's good, to be honest. I think that a society based on these values would not be as flourishing as the society depicted. So there's really no point in me trying to defend it. It's just.
Yeah, I would agree. So Q-Ball calls the lottery barbaric because they're actively killing people. I'm not really sure what the alternative is, though. You can't just really get a society to change based on people committing suicide. Most people aren't aren't that inclined to do such a thing with no incentive. Um, I feel like
Well,
that's a
journalists probably think that he can't argue with the results, right? That in many ways it's more civilized, and that in our world, people die of war and starvation. Whereas in
yeah.
this case,
That's the uh, so yeah. Unfortunately, yeah, out of order. But yeah, the next thing I had written was Arturo says it's more humane than our society, where people die from war, famine, disease because we refuse to accept limits on our population. Here they kill volunteers. I have that in scare quotes. Peacefully and help the survivors. I might disagree with them being volunteers, although it is more voluntary than any such thing in our world would be. I could agree with that aspect. I think that the very nature of the lottery makes it not, for the most part, capable of accepting volunteers. And the only time you would get a volunteer is in an extreme case, such as like Ryan, who's like, "Oh well, I, I 100%ed life, so let's go for the next. Let's go for whatever's next."
I
Um,
mean, I don't know if he's supposed to be an outlier here. This is portrayed as a prosperous society for everyone. I'm guessing that people who feel like they've 100% life in a society where, killing yourself because of the lottery seems honorable, like, we have a point of reference of two, and we don't really have a reason to believe that he's not the norm.
True. Um, it's still also highly focused, or regardless of intentionality, it would still focus on the disadvantaged of life. The as noted, it actively is targeting the poor because they need money to live. And so, like the last poor person dying or winning the lottery 6 months ago goes to further that statement that uh, they would be actively being targeted in such a system. Anybody who has disabled friends, family, relatives, similarly would be being targeted in such a society because they would need more money to take care of their disabled friends or family, or even their disabled selves. More likely, so they'd be more likely to be murdered. The racial
Yeah, I know about the
minorities,
social safety net of this society.
yeah, but given what we do know and introducing the most minimal amount of changes, I'm would think that it might be, it could be similar. Granted, I guess there are arguments to be made in the opposite, such as the fact that you just have free public transportation that's readily available. So I guess maybe who knows. But so I would also think like just going down my own rabbit hole, racial minorities would be targeted as well due to starting out from a place of less wealth. People who are disowned by their family, such as queer youth, having to start over from zero, assuming this society doesn't, assuming this society also is dislikes their queers. Um, so I would still think that the society and the lottery preys on marginalized individuals. So we already did that light. Egyptian, Wade's journal, Rembrandt and Arturo. So yeah, I'm flipping all over the place. Rembrandt and Arturo go fish. What?
I said, go, flip.
Rembrandt and Arturo go fishing. Arturo is boasting about how great he is at fishing and how Rembrandt is relying too much on like modern technology for it. And he's like, watch a real fisherman kind of thing. And then Arturo catches a tiny small fish and also a tree with his fly fishing. And Rembrandt catches a larger fish with his reel.
But he doesn't catch a fish that is larger than a tree.
That is true. The professor did technically win by catching a tree. Wade and Cue Ball go horseback riding. This is before all of the stuff went down, and they're like, wow, this place is idyllic. Cue Ball smacks his face into a tree because he doesn't know how to ride a horse perfectly well, which, you know, understandable. I also do not know how to ride a horse. I would.
It's a good thing he did not die.
What?
It's a good thing he did not die from falling off his horse.
Yeah, the world already has too few people. The stupid the stupid romance subplot sneaks back in briefly for no good reason. Wade says she's tired of sliding. And this is the part where we get to the section of the episode where that addresses what we address. I want to say weekly, but we keep putting them off due to variety of reasons. So kind of bi-weekly, I guess. Better to be stuck somewhere good than terrible if the timer gives out. We will get back to our thoughts on that later. Right to life protesters. Wade wins the lottery by drawing out $5,000. So she did that. She did the 5,000. I don't remember what Rembrandt did. I want to say 1,000. She's like, wow, we'll never have to worry about money again. Which, yeah, I guess, technically. Dang it. I'm trying to click my game.
What do you need for the rest of your life?
Yep, $5,000. I mean, in this world, maybe $5,000 would be all the money you would need for the rest of your life, even if we ignore the fact that your life will only be the next day. Cuba.
We're back to this. Oh, actually, go ahead. Keep going.
Cuba doesn't seem to trust the government in general, is my suggestion. When Koki said he seemed paranoid, I take this from the first episode where it's communist world and he's very anti-communist, followed by this world where he's trying to overthrow it, the world in, oh, we did it, the British States of America, where he goes trying to overthrow theirs, and introduce democracy. He just gets involved in a lot of revolutionary activities.
Different worlds have different values. I won't stand for it.
Kind of. I mean, I can sympathize with there if we have if we think we can help this world, we have an obligation to. But I mean, if you think you can help anybody, I would think that you'd have an obligation to. He also continues to do it later in the episodes. He gets most or most extreme in his the government sucks in no, I don't remember what the name of the episode was, but it's the one where they go to a world and they think that the world has perfected sliding, and in actuality, the world perfected killing people in an oven.
Oh, yeah, I don't remember this world, but I know vaguely what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. They just so they're talking about Kubel and Arturo and Wade and Rembrandt are shopping for dresses for Wade. Looking at them, they're being presented. Models are coming out, showing what they look like. They look at a brown, I think it was a brown suit, and Wade's like, "You'd look really snazzy in that." And then the model leaves, and then a model comes up wearing a dress, and it's clearly for Wade. And then Rembrandt's like, "I think I like the blue one." And I just like Koki's statement. Rembrandt prefers the blue dress over his brown tuxedo.
Yes.
um, this obviously isn't what was meant, but it was funny regardless. So Rembrandt becomes infatuated with another winner, Mrs. Murphy, who's really devoted to the lottery, and she comes into the room to also look at the designs being displayed. The gala has tight security from the right to lifers. Koki pointed out security seems more for keeping people in than keeping people out. Because Cuba just shrugs his way in when they're like, "Hey, you're not on the list, stop." And he's like, "I've got to get in there." And he just literally just shrugs, and they go, "Well, okay, I guess he's inside now." Wade had to fill out a beneficiary next of kin. Ryan donated his $5 million to the Sierra Club, an environmentalist group. I do not think that this would exist in this world. There would be significantly fewer people, and thus a significantly reduced destruction of the environment, especially if, as Wade says, there's no pollution, or even if there's just very minimal pollution. I don't think the Sierra Club would have too much of a necessity, especially if the population is still dwindling.
We don't know what this world Sierra Club does.
Yeah.
I think he cares about the environment, though.
It does seem to, what with his statement. Well, I guess there is the possibility that maybe the environment's slightly more fucked due to his wanderings around the world and doing various exploratory things as though they were easy, because he's still fairly young, late 20s, and he's already climbed the Himalayas and explored the Amazon and kayaked down it and a whole bunch of other stuff. So it could be that things are more cleared out just so people are able to do these type of things, but I don't fully know, obviously. There. Cube meets right to lifer. So lottery drawings, they seem to be done every night, and in San Francisco with a notably decreased population. I think there were only 10,000 people in San Francisco. There were 12 winners, but this seems to be 12 winners per night. due to the fact that they were only on the world for 36 hours, and they do the lottery really shortly after arriving, and then the winners are announced that night. So it could be nightly, it could be they got a really unlucky draw period.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it could be like once a year, and that just happened to be the day, but we don't know.
I kind of think that nightly would make more sense in reduction of the population, to keep it and can especially reduce the population as opposed to just keep it stagnant. Even if every large city was doing just 12 a night, or just 12 like a year or even a month. I would still imagine the population would be growing and not shrinking, or even remaining stagnant.
Maybe. I think one thing that we did skip over is that there are advertisements for flavored
Do I have? I thought I had that. I did not, or I can't find it. Go on.
Yeah, so not only in birth control, like something. I mean, we don't see it in a store, but it's advertised like a soda. So presumably, this is something that you can just get over the counter pretty easily.
Yeah,
And
it
it's
was
going to be
BC. It was BC Cola, birth control in a can.
Yeah, and so I get the impression that this is a world that's very conscientious about its population and, take a lot of personal initiative towards lowering the population besides the government initiatives. So I don't know what the population growth is like.
Yeah.
But, the fact that there's the Thomas Malthus Institute of Sexual Health makes me think that, okay, just generally speaking, this is what ed is based around rather than avoiding, like, HIV or something like that, which I feel like is the big moral panic around sex ed, besides the fact that we don't want children having sex because Jesus, right?
Yeah. Oops. I forgot that dot. Okay. Rembrandt says he likes Julianne, wants to take her to another world. She reports him to the cop and says he's insane. She's killed willingly. She also thinks he's delusional because of his sliding story. I wonder what episode that they'll finally... What'll be basically the last episode where they consistently go, I'm actually from a parallel universe. No, I'm not crazy. Please, believe me. I know, I'm pretty sure it happens at some time, but it's still annoying for them to go, no, they're clearly believe this story that's obviously been designed by a madman. But
I think it's already happened. Like, you're not gonna believe this, but
yeah, Wade does tell it to Ryan, and he kind of believes her, with like a caveat. He's like, well, I'll take my chances because I'm gonna be dead either way, is how it feels to me, how he just is thinking of it. The room's bugged, or wait, no, so Wade goes into the room and tells the professor, we need to walk the dog, and the dog is like, the professor's like, the dog is fine. Is just yelling and insulting the dog, and then Wade goes, we need to walk the dog, but really loud, I'm not gonna yell, and it motions the room is bugged, like points to her ear and mouths it, and the professor's like, well, when you put it that way, Yes, we should. Come on, little bugger. I would find this highly suspicious. Uh, um,
Yeah, it's
uh,
like, just say, if you won't shut up, then I'll walk the damn dog. Let's go.
yeah,
Or
or
even
fine, if you're gonna
say
yell at me,
fine.
we'll walk the frickin' dog. Cause stupid. But yeah. um, they see that Rembrandt is being arrested, and Cue Ball tells Wade to slide without them if they aren't back. It's is amusing because she was the only one who was saying she wanted to stay. Everybody else was wanting to slide, and now it's a potential option of she could be the only one to slide. Um, Obviously, in universe lore, as a TV show, we know that's not going to be the case. Um, but obviously, her being the option is because she's the one most at danger. Technically, Rembrandt's the most at danger, but they're going to rescue him, so he's not really an option for sliding, doing the sliding device. Um, they do the aforementioned. Van turns over. Cue Ball bursts in, punches in the window, and helps him escape. They take a car, immediately crash it for some reason. This isn't explained or commented on. It's just like, sorry, buddy, and leaves. They get back to the place on foot, still within time. Um, Wade's hiding from the lottery head behind a curtain and given away by the dog barking. She's grabbed by a cop and the lottery head, technically. Ryan punches the cop in the head with a fire extinguisher, and then the host is like, "What's going on out there?" and walks out that direction, and he's bopped in the middle of the face by Ryan with the extinguisher as well. The rest of the group shows up. They blockade a door, and so the police can't get in as easily. Uh, they find Wade. They open the portal. Cops break in. The group slides, including Ryan and the dog. Then it's like, quick, they're getting away. Shoot them, or shoot them, something like that. And one cop isn't deterred by the gunshots, or isn't deterred by the giant ass vortex doing something weird, and actually does shoot at them. And when they get to the other side of the wormhole, everybody's like, oh boy, we're out of there. At least we're alright. Or no, is everybody alright? And then Cue Ball collapses bleeding on the other side of the wormhole, and Wade's like, ah! And then the season ends.
Yeah, one thing that you didn't mention that I guess is worth mentioning is the Lotto head sort of nervously saying, truth is, I'm a hypocrite.
Oh,
Despite the
right.
fact that I work in this, I'm afraid to die. Which, Arturo doesn't know that the lottery kills people yet, so he's just sort of like, what? But
I don't
I
quite
think it
follow.
is. I think it is indicative, alongside like the fear that the place might be bugged and the draconic torture, that kind of conveys, I guess, how authoritarian the society is, not just in terms of the heavy-handed policing, which is the case, but also people don't feel safe in their thoughts. But that's sort of like part of the broader narrative I'm weaving in my head about this world.
Mm-hmm. Entirely reasonable. Oops, I didn't want that at all. So that's basically the extent of my thoughts at the present moment. Do you have alternate history ideas?
So, what the show is trying to suggest is that people took Malthus more seriously, and that's what led to this society. Now, Malthusian about the society, in my mind, is that they are conscious about the world population. And I guess it's Malthusian in that the world works on the logic that fewer people means more to go around for everyone, so everyone's happier. In that respect, I guess, the world itself is Malthusian, but I don't think that's how we got this world. Um, I'm of the opinion that there had to have been some kind of event. In our world, Malthusian economics really had its moment to shine during the Irish famine when, blight was infecting potatoes and other crops, but, most notably potatoes. And people took Malthus to heart saying, no, this is a natural correction event. We should let people die. Otherwise,
Boo people.
What's up?
Oh, I'm just booing people.
Yeah, and it's worth noting that some people were trying to send aid to the Irish people because they thought this was inhumane, including the Seminole Nation that was, I believe, in the Trail of Tears still, on its way to Oklahoma, and it's like, oh wow, the Irish people have it bad, let's give them some aid. And the British actually blocked that aid from ever reaching Ireland.
Yeah,
So,
I believe in Ireland there is a monument honoring the Seminole tribe for that reason.
yeah, the end, I don't even think people give, like, Malthus, or, well, it's not even Malthus, it's how people sort of, like, people really don't acknowledge, I guess, capitalism and the justification for it, Malthus being one of them, as sort of like the reason why this happened. But the Irish potato famine, yes, blight is something that just occurred, that's outside of human control. But what made it a famine was very much within human control. So in this alternate world, maybe it was something worse. Maybe it was worldwide. Maybe it's something that brought the population low to levels that we can't actually, like, even imagine. And, already there was already, like, a global trade network. So it's possible that some kind of crop disease could find its way as far as China or the middle of Africa or whatever. I mean, depends on the crop, obviously.
Yeah.
Regardless, I'm going to say that there was just some sort of massive devastating incident, and that's the real reason why the population was so low. But maybe people felt like Malthus was vindicated because of this. People after the fact are like, the reason why things went so terribly is because we tried to feed everyone. And there's this kind of new religious movement that's emerging around it, that which sort of goes into the making way and the great beyond sort of rhetoric, that death is good, death is honorable, and it also is a situation where there's a new social order that is very draconic, very totalitarian, very, well, I guess authoritarian is probably the better word, that people are spying on one another because of this sort of fanaticism that has emerged, right? And so people have to think a certain way, people have to speak a certain way, and people have to hold these kinds of values. Now, this is pretty deviant from what Malthus actually believed. And granted, we don't see what the world outside of California looks like, so maybe in other places it really is just more blatantly anti-poor. But what wouldn't surprise me is that these kinds of policies may have been done widely, like this anti-poverty policies may have been done widely even in California, but at the end of the day, that's actually not good for the economy, People dying is actually not going to lead to a more prosperous society, and actually hurting the poor ultimately hurts our consumer base in roundabout ways. And so the lottery might be a compromise, right? Like during the Obama administration, we have quantitative easing where it's like, we can't just give people money. So we're going to set up these infrastructure projects. That way it'll be construction workers and they feel like they earned it, and that's why we can justify giving them money. In this society that sort of romanticizes death and prioritizes, population control, it's sort of like, yeah, we could just send out these free ATMs, but they have to justify it. It's like saying that it'll fix the economy. One, no one's going to believe that, but even if they did, it might not seem like enough. So to make it fair, quote unquote, it's like, okay, we're going to give out this money, but to stay true to our resource conservation, population control values, we're going to have it that they die. And so, they can send their money to their next of kin, they can spend things extravagantly, and most people won't even be called for a lottery, so, there's still going to be a lot of money being put in, but to say that it's still compliant with their cultural values, they kill people. This is my theory on how the lottery actually works. And so, at that point, when you look at the right to life movement, it's sort of like, maybe some of these people are aware that actually we could just give people money and we don't have to kill people. I kind of wish they went that angle. In reality, they're just sort of an inconsistent mess. But if I had to make this world work, I'm also going to say the whole process thing, that it's sort of like death isn't enough for some criminals, we also have to torture them. This also seems like the byproduct of a society that went through some kind of upheaval and some very authoritarian turn. Not to say that even in so-called liberal democracies we can't do some pretty horrible draconic stuff, but
The U.S. tortures a lot. U.S. tortures a lot of people. U.S. tortures a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah, and but in this case, they acknowledge it as torture, right? Like, we
Yeah.
have solitary confinement, but we like to pretend that it's not torture. Even when we word people, it's called enhanced interrogation. And even that was like controversial, and that was one thing that ended in the Obama administration. I think maybe I'm wrong there.
I also believe
But
so, at least officially. Granted, it could have been brought back because Trump likes doing everything that's immoral.
right. So, I do think that for them, I mean, part of me is by this part of me thinking, do I need a justification, right? Like, we acknowledge, like, being raped in prison is part of the criminal justice process. We'll even, like, say that, like, oh, good, he's going to get ass raped in prison or whatever. But at the very least, no, I'm sure even cops joke about that. You know what? I'm not going to say anything more. Maybe they're not that different from us. We actually don't know how arduous being processed is to begin with, but they at least have this attitude that involves sort of taking delight in people being tortured. And part of me wants to think this is indicative of a social shift that may have been because of some sort of catastrophic disease or famine or something of that nature. And that explains sort of all of the other cultural shifts. And Malthus has been kind of whitewashed as he just wanted to manage the population, and we didn't, and that's why the world is so bad. That kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
At the very least, I don't think Malthus really talked about sexual ethics. He viewed humans kind of ecologically, like, this is just something that people will do. They will have children, and policymakers is just more try not to, take too much pity on the poor.
Yeah.
I don't know if we have any Malphus stands in the chat, and it's like, you're completely misrepresenting him. He wasn't anti-poor at all, but my understanding is he was like, very much, we should not take measures to help the poor.
Yeah. And if we do, you probably know more about him than either of us, because to the best of my knowledge, we haven't actually read him. We just a smidge. So that the end of your theorizing for?
Yeah. If I were to condense it, bad plague or disease or famine or something like that, totalitarian, draconic society. That's not good for the economy, so they use the lottery as a means to inject money into the economy. Now the economy is doing great, and they kill people to justify that.
So this leads to the two questions that we normally have. Staying on the alternate history section. Puerto Rico. What do you think it's like?
You know, this is another. There have been a couple of times I was like, is this different from what happened to Puerto Rico? Obviously, Puerto Rico's had a pretty steady population decline since the 70s. But obviously, a lot of that's due to grain train and not necessarily like imposed values. It'd be interesting if San Juan was just sort of its own city state and the rest of the island was rewilded. But
Were such the case, so I guess this will be like sections of possible alternates. What would the Taino be like if San Juan is a city state? Because obviously the entire place isn't going to be entirely abandoned. That just doesn't seem realistic.
Well, I guess I was assuming a point of divergence in the 1800s, and well, yes, people have criticized the statement that the Taino fell victim of a paper genocide and that there was still Taino around. I do think that, by and large, by the time that this like famine or blight or plague or whatever happens, that the Taino would have been thoroughly integrated with the Spanish society. Whether or not Spain is part of, or whether or not Puerto Rico is part of the U.S. or Spain, I don't know. But I don't. I think it's still a little late to meaningfully change things for the Taino on that front. As fun a thought as it was, as fun as a thought as it would be, and if there was a kind of disease that not just killed like Europeans but revived Native Americans, that would be pretty neat. But I that's not what I'm imagining for this world.
Mm-hmm. So then the next one being, should they stay or should they go?
Oh, actually, I'm not sure if I'm done with Puerto Rico.
Oh, no, sorry. I forgot this was a multiple part thing.
So, Puerto Rico is not shy on using very draconic measures. So it's worth noting that Puerto Rico was anti-death penalty pretty early on by U.S. standards, though they did have the death penalty under Spanish rule and, executed it pretty arbitrarily. I've heard some pretty horrible stories in terms of how the poor were treated. So, in terms of, well, one, does the Spanish-American War still happen? And if it does this drastically change the state of affairs in Puerto Rico? I'm not sure. Puerto Rico also was a bit more proactive in providing health care for everyone. And so culturally, well, the independence movement was very much socialist leaning. And even the statehood movement and the popular Democrat movement had a very kind of humanitarian bend to it. I don't know if Puerto Rico might not go with such draconic measures as California is, and perhaps, be sort of an example of not practicing that. Puerto Rico is a small island, so I don't think it would make a huge difference. Especially if people will still say, I'd rather move to the States because there's more opportunity and stuff. But it's also possible that pushing back against these kinds of values, Puerto Rico declares independence. Whether or not this would be good for Puerto Rico specifically, I'm not sure. But at
Would
the
it
very
be
least, it won't have
easier
people
for
being
Puerto Rico
to become independent.
with a significantly smaller population, at the very least on the mainland? But let's just say
Oh,
proportionally.
uh, I think that Puerto Rico is going to have a harder time becoming independent, just generally because fewer people means smaller economy, which means logistics become a bit more difficult. Though, if Puerto Rico becomes independent from Spain or the United States earlier, then this may have been before shipping laws were changed in a way that made Puerto Rico suffer a bit more than, you know, parts of the mainland U.S.
True. If
And
Puerto Rico did have a smaller population, would that not suggest that they would be more capable of, I don't know, sustaining their own population with what they are capable of growing themselves?
Hmm. Agriculturally, Puerto Rico is not great. So that is a valid point. I think that they'd still have to import. And granted, if we are talking about Malthus values being sort of taken for granted, Puerto Rico would have bad luck with that. They'd probably still be a major sugarcane producer because that's something that Puerto Rico can kind of grow. But I don't know. The scenario just generally, I suppose part of this is in the real world, a lower population oftentimes leads to kind of bleak outcomes. But in this world, where it results in prosperity all around, then maybe Puerto Rico would be doing better. But obviously, we're talking about like the fundamental laws of economics and nature being different in this alternate Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
Uh, but yes, the question that Wayne finally asked and kind of had answered for her.
Should they stay or should they go?
As far as
Which
I
would.
can tell, if they were non-lottery players, this isn't a terrible place to be. Now, part of me, being a person that lives in this world and operates by this world's logic, is just sort of like a smaller population might mean that they have fewer materials to build a new sliding device, and so they'd have a harder time. But obviously, this world's just kind of utopia if it weren't for this lottery thing. And so, if they didn't get involved in the lottery, yes, they should stay. But obviously, they did, and so they're all criminals, and there's really no point in staying.
Yeah, I mean, I'd basically have to agree. Were they not basically wanted fugitives due to severe interference with the lottery? Like even, well, I guess interference with the lottery is literally declared said to be the worst crime that you could do on this world. So the fact that Cue Ball broke into the oh, my phone's going off, into the facility and rescued Rembrandt is probably less of a crime, but, still a crime, so he's probably wouldn't be treated well.
Yeah, and yeah, they definitely shattered the bed. They gotta go.
Yeah, unfortunately, because this would otherwise have been a
Oh,
probably perfectly okay world to
I was
stay.
going to
Sorry.
say Wade's narration because of the diary. First of all, I kind of wish this stuck as a plot point. Wade was an okay narrator. It's kind of weird that they would do it for one episode and no other. But it echoed a lot of what the alternate world Quinn from the first episode said, that he found a world where everyone greeted him like brothers, where there was no war or poverty. And obviously, Tara's of the opinion that this is definitely not the case. But I am wondering if it's possible that, this alternate Quinn might have been referring to this world and maybe didn't see why it was so bad. I I mean, they found out about the lottery, but depending on how big a part of the society it is, which I think we could go either way on that. He may not have just encountered it, right? Like, you're of the opinion that it happens every day because it happened the day that they're there and the population is so low. I think there are a number of reasons why the population might be low, and we don't necessarily know how frequent this lottery is. But I think it would be funny if we actually did see the worlds that the alternate Quinn talked about being the best and ideal world, and it wasn't that great.
Yep, that would be silly. Okay, well,
But yes,
my alarm's going off, and I should collect it before it drives everyone nuts, and I get a crowd who starts bursting through the doors and beats me to death. And the entire city just attacks at once. So
all right. Well, thanks for listening to us ramble for what, like 2 hours, an hour and a half.
that tends to be about what we do.
Yeah. And we'll see you next slide.
Have fun.